All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. We thank you for all your support in this journey of supporting veterans through their stories and finding ways to help them help themselves along the way. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast apps and on our YouTube channel, _Misfit Nation. That is _Misfit Nation. This will keep you up to date with the latest news about the Misfit Nation and get you in touch with our amazing guests. Speaking of which, our next guest was once known as the Flip King of real estate before he discovered the overlooked profits hiding in the self-storage industry. He's gone from flipping over 100 homes per year to making 10 times more in profits from only doing 5 to 10 storage deals per year. In addition to self-storage investing, he is also an author, host of his own podcast titled The Legacy Blueprint, and the CEO of 2 other 7- and 8-figure businesses. So without further ado, let's welcome Joe Evangelisti, entrepreneur, coach, US Navy veteran, and host of the Legacy Blueprint podcast to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Joe.
Rich, thanks for that intro, man. That was great. Appreciate
Awesome. Thank you. So how are you doing?
Fantastic.
Awesome. And you got a lot of stuff going on. You got multiple businesses. You got strategies going on. Tell us a little bit about yourself from as far back as you want to go to where we are now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, without getting too crazy back. I mean, I'm a product of the construction industry. My dad was a general contractor growing up. He was like the first real entrepreneur I knew in my life, and the only one that I can really, emulate at the time. And so, I had this like need to want to serve, but I also always knew I was going to be a business owner. So, I got really lucky out of high school. My dad had a foreman working inside of the GC company who was actually a retired Navy senior chief, but also he's still in the reserves. And, he said, you can go be a Navy Seabee. Like you can still do construction. You could do it in the military. And I was like, no way. That's amazing. You got to be kidding me. So like I got to be able to do what I always loved doing and serve my country. A lot of people don't even know what the Navy Seabees are, but it's the construction battalions of the Navy. And so essentially we get to go all over the world and build all kinds of cool stuff. And so I got to do that for 6 years. I got the luck of being, stationed in some really, really cool places and working with some amazing people. And so, yeah, shortly after that, I knew, again, entrepreneur, going to go do a business. So, within a couple of years of getting out of the military, I was already well under my way of flipping houses and getting involved in real estate.
That's outstanding. And the Seabees are a different breed. A lot of people confuse them with other parts of the Navies. They hear Seabees, they think SEALs for some reason because sea is involved in there. I ran into a lot of Seabees when I was in Ramadi in Iraq, and those dudes would build stuff that you would not imagine can be built in those beautiful areas in places like Iraq or Afghanistan, and usually do it for fake beer too. And you didn't have to bribe them too much to get them to do work.
We're pretty easy. We're pretty easy to get stuff done. You just got to ask and be nice.
Just provide what they kind of want, and they'll do it for you. Did you get to go on any trips overseas with the Seabees, or were you stateside?
Yeah, I did multiple deployments overseas. I went to Japan and Guam, and one of my last trips was actually in US Central Command, just as we were invading Baghdad. I was working for Tommy Franks and basically all the generals who were running the war, and I got stationed there to build out the infrastructure of the command center and basically built their offices for them inside of these huge hangar bays. And so that was an amazing trip. And that kind of wrapped up my career at the end of that. And, I actually was getting back. I was planning on becoming a reservist. And I never forget the detailer at the time was like, well, you can go into the reserves, but you might as well hang on to your camis, your desert camis, because you're going right back. Your entire reserve battalion is already over there. So you're going right back into the desert. And I was like, well, for one, I don't want to do that again. And two, I had that calling again to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I just got to go after my heart. I got to do what I'm driven to do.
Outstanding. And that's when you started doing house flipping, I'm guessing, at this point.
Yeah, we got into flipping houses, and again, what I call a lucky period of time was 2007. So if you recall anything about the real estate market back then, it was hot, it was booming. And I took everything that I had kind of saved up from all my deployments and my 6 years in, and I went all in, and I bought a couple houses, and we did it the old-fashioned way. We put 20% down, we went to a bank, we got construction financing. And about 3 deals into this whole adventure, the market just like came out from underneath of us. And so, it forced us, I say it's a lucky time because, it forced me to learn business the hard way. It forced me to learn to pivot and to course correct. And, not everything's going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. We started these first couple houses. I thought I'd be retired, in 15 deals and, wake up a year and a half later and now I'm a landlord and I'm bartending nights and weekends to pay my kids' daycare bills. And I got a broker's license so I could start selling real estate for a commission. And so, I had to kind of pivot and start to expand the horizons to buffer that time frame. But pretty shortly after that, the market started to correct and we were able to buy houses cheaper. We were flipping and actually selling properties probably within 2 years of that start.
That's not bad. And as an entrepreneur, being able to pivot is a big plus to having your toolbox. And I know you
Yep.
learned that from your dad growing up, and then of course in the Navy you had to learn how to pivot a lot in the Navy,
Absolutely.
pivot and wait in the Navy. And then as you came out, you hit, like you said, that was the rock bottom for real estate in 2008, 2009. Started coming out about 2010 down here in Tennessee. Now it's just booming down here. But how did you get up to 100 homes a year flipping? That's a lot.
Just scale. We just kept taking on more and more. And, eventually that's what kind of helped us pivot to self-storage. We got to a point about 12 years into that industry where, we were doing 80, 90 plus a year. And I remember one year we did, I think 88 houses and we sat down, me and my partner, and we're like, what do you want to do next year? You want to do like 120? You want to do 100? And he looked at me, I looked at him. He's like, I don't want to do 88 again. like it was an absolute, nightmare. We had 45 employees. We had hundreds of subcontractors, massive cash flow in and out. Payroll was huge every week. It felt like you were always chasing deals, chasing closings. And it was just a lot of motion and commotion. And so we took a step back and we kind of, decided like, how do we get into something that's more scalable, more controllable, with an effective and efficient team that can go out and execute. And, we started looking at commercial real estate. And honestly, this is way before COVID. We were looking at offices and retail and, bigger apartment buildings and things like that. And at that time, all of those places were hyper competitive. And so I started trying to look like, what are the periphery, commercial outlets? And self-storage came across my plate one day. And I started having phone calls and I ended up running into one guy in particular who is now one of my mentors, really good friends. And he says to me, Joe, I did what you did for the last 15 years. He built planned unit subdivisions. He built restaurants. He built commercial buildings. He was a builder by trade. And he said, I just got into self-storage 2 years ago. He was on his fourth or fifth deal at the time. And he said, I'm telling you right now, the first time you build a self-storage, you're never going to build anything else again. You're going to pay people to build your own primary house from now on. Like you'll never touch anything residential again, because it's a much bigger scale, much more zeros, but it's concrete, it's steel, and it's asphalt. I got 100,000 square foot facilities that have 2 toilets. You're not picking out cabinets and tile and paint colors. It's all basic. And so we build steel boxes now, which is not as sexy as it used to be, but the numbers are really sexy.
And everyone needs storage because no one wants to keep their stuff in their house anymore, because that takes away some of that square footage that they spent so much money on, that they can put little trinkets in instead of a large X or whatever. The Christmas decorations always stay in storage. And sometimes when the storage collapses on them, those are the things that get sold at auction. So a lot of the auctions are Christmas decorations and lights and whatever trinkets that kids left in there. Are you just doing it in New Jersey or are you nationwide?
We're nationwide right now. We have sites in Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, New Jersey, New York. And we're starting to kind of matriculate west a little bit. Our team's already looking at deals in Colorado and Utah and California, things like that. So yeah, I mean, right now we're Texas and East, but by the end of this year, I'm sure we're going to be touching almost every state, across, east to west.
I mean, it's a lucrative market. I mean, I see them here. They build them like wildfire. As an apartment building goes up, a storage unit gets built right next to it. As a subdivision goes up, 2 go up next to it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's amazing to me is one of my actually my chief development officer, when I first had a conversation with him years ago when I started into this, he said to me, Joe, the cool thing about self-storage is that you could take a dart and throw it at a map of the United States and build a self-storage right there and be successful. He goes, now that's not the goal. The goal is to find the best areas, the best locations, the best places for ramp up and for demographics that are going to serve that self-storage. But at the end of the day, 98% of self-storages that are built are successful. And that's an amazing number. When you think about 65% of small businesses close in the first 3 years, self-storage, believe it or not, is just it's a continuous expanding need throughout our nation. And we don't even think about it, but I can promise you right now, if you went out and tried to rent a 10 by 30 unit, you would go to multiple places before you found one that was vacant. These guys are generally 95% plus occupied. And so it's not as easy as you think to find a storage, and there's a demand for obviously expansion.
Yeah, most of the ones you'll find here are the smaller ones. I guess it's like a 5 by 8 or something like that. It's a real, almost like a closet. Those are the ones that are easily available. Anything bigger than that, you're waiting, or you have to drive a distance to find one.
Totally. Yep.
So when you got into this, and anyone said, "Oh, you're crazy to get into self-storage. You should stay with what you know. You know construction. You know houses. Stay with that. You don't want to go this way."
Yeah. You know what? I had very few of those conversations, Rich, to be honest with you, because I think that our vision and our clarity and our mission of what we wanted to accomplish was so just crystal clear that, from day one, I kind of joke with my partner about this. From day one, everyone looked at us as storage developers. Like, it was like we would have conversations to raise money to syndicate deals, and people would be like, they just assumed we had much more experience than we did. But the background is we had commercial construction experience. We've been in the construction field for a long time. This is just a bigger version. If you're capable of building a custom home, we were building 5,000-6,000 square foot custom homes, which doesn't compare to a storage, but it's almost like if you were building 3 or 4 of them at the same time. It's the same oversight. It's the same subs. It's just more zeros. It's just bigger contracts, and obviously there's more risk inherent in it. But the thing that also really remediates that is, when you're flipping a house or you're doing a custom build or you're doing a spec home, it's like, 1 or 2 or 3 people making the decision. When we go out and build a $20 million self-storage facility, there's 15, 20 people weighing in. Is this a good site? Is the due diligence right? Is the environmental right? Is the soil good for building? Are we in an area that's going to ramp up properly? Bankers and attorneys and insurance people, everyone's looking at this deal. And so it's not just me and my partner looking at it and saying, yeah, let's go build here. It's a plethora of team that are looking at that thing and saying, yeah, we have a really, really good chance of being successful. So let's go pull the trigger.
Like right now in Middle Tennessee here, Nashville alone has 100 new people a day moving in. That's a wild number.
That's right.
And you have cranes everywhere. But the people that are leaving Nashville are coming here, just west of Nashville to Clarksville, and we're growing. No house stays on the market more than a day. So that's the need right there for what you're providing with storage. Have you thought about coming to Tennessee?
Yeah, we absolutely have. We've in fact targeted multiple sites in and around Nashville in the last 6 months, and they're really hard to find, to be honest with you. But that's a perfect example of an expanding city. Nashville, Atlanta, multiple cities in Florida and Texas and Tennessee. They're really our southeast quadrant of kind of, I would say warmer weather climate areas. That's where everybody from the Northeast is pushing to, even people from the West Coast pushing into. So yeah, those are the kind of MSAs or market areas that we start to key in on, because we love expansion. It brings more jobs, it brings more income, it brings more people, and generally those people are moving, and that's the benefit of the storage area.
It definitely is, and a lot of, especially here, we have the military here as well. So a lot of military don't like to keep their stuff in their house because they don't get a big house on base, especially. You basically get a closet for you and your kids in the house. And that storage is really valuable to them because, like us, we were 22 years in the military. Our whole garage was a storage unit, basically, in our last house. And we had to get into storage in order to sell that house so that people could see our house. And I know that's what people don't even think about.
Well, that's part of the need. And, the thing about the people don't think about storage is the vast demographic of users in storage, right? So that's just one. You have military transitioning, you have people who are in temporary housing who need, somewhere to store their stuff. But then you go on to contractors who use it for excess materials, retail storefronts use it for excess materials, the lawyers, attorneys that are using it for file storage. You got a lot of people now that are working from home, selling different products, and they need to keep them in a place that's climate controlled. So they'll rent those 5x5s and run their business out of that 5x5 unit. So it's such a vast, and then of course upsizers and downsizers and baby boomers, and mom moves into a nursing home and you're moving her stuff into a storage. There's so many varying degrees of user base that 2021 was the best year in recorded history for self-storage. And a lot of people say, how's that possible? Well, it's because a lot of the other industries, we're really, struggling. Office, retail, office is struggling more than historically ever has, because, this adversity of COVID, it forced people to focus on, hey, can we do things differently? And what happens? A bunch of people who never thought about going virtually are now actually virtual. They're more productive, they're more profitable, they're more effective, they're more efficient. And they're like, I don't need 3,000 square foot of office anymore. I could operate out of a 500 square foot cubicle to have a mailing address. And, we could store the rest of it, or, you guys can work from home. It's changing the dichotomy of really commercial real estate in general.
Definitely is. Another group would be food trucks, because that exploded over the
It's
last
another one.
2 years, because
Yep.
restaurants, you couldn't eat in them. So many of them went to
Yep.
the Meals on Wheels kind of deal. So they have to have a
Yep.
place to store their cups, their plates, their storage materials. And
Absolutely.
that's a perfect
Yep.
area for it right there. They just pull in, load up, go. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you get a lot of that all over in every one of your sites.
And I'd say the biggest demographic of growing users is the excess toy user, right? Because what happens now, people aren't going on these elaborate vacations. They're buying RVs, they're buying quads, they're buying boats, they're buying jet skis. And if it's seasonal, they need somewhere to put it, right? So there's a massive influx. We were talking a couple of weeks ago with a panel of developers from around the country, and they determined through a bunch of different studies that they think there's going to be a 65 to 75% increase in need in toys, in the toy market, right? The adult,
Adult
so
toys.
like that's crazy. Yeah, well, I hate to call them adult toys, but you guys get it. Motorized vehicles and stuff like that.
Not those adult toys, but these are
not those adult toys.
Definitely. I see that. That's right down the block here. There's one that has the storage, and then they have basically made a parking lot in front of it with the
Yep.
fence around it. And they have the RVs, they have the boats, they have all the hunting devices that they can have for their trailers and stuff to load everything in there. And it sits there and they go out when they have to. And that's a perfect
Yeah.
way to add to an already thriving business.
Yeah, yeah. Texas is a huge market for that. We're building 5 different facilities in and around major, San Antonio, Houston, DFW, and that's because you got down there, you got land with big houses. But what do? They build a 1 or 2 car garage.
Right.
These guys have a heck of a lot more toys than that 2 car garage, right? So they're literally, holding storage just so they can have their toys in storage.
Definitely. And a lot of the garages they built now aren't even big enough for the cars that are on the road now. Never mind what you have in your
That's right.
house for the
That's
extra
right.
things like an RV or a quad or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
So as you were having all this success, and then you decided to become an author too. What was your thought process in becoming an author?
Yeah, so I've been writing books now I think I wrote my first book about 7 years ago on flipping houses, because, they used to call me the flip king. We had flipping going on. We had flipping masterminds. We had, flipping coaching and all that kind of stuff. So I've been writing books for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, Rich, it's more for me than it is for it's therapeutic, right?
Right.
You like get it out of your, get it out of your system. But the reality of it is, people have a lot of success from reading, the stuff that we write. So it's a combination of self-serving, and I really write my books to help coach my executive team. So it's usually the stuff I'm working on with them to help them get better. And I put it in book format so that when we hire new people, it's like, here's the latest book, go check this out. So a lot of it is cultural. A lot of it is business related. A lot of it is self-improvement so we can become better leaders.
That's outstanding, and it's an easy way to onboard someone to your team too. Here,
Yeah.
read books A through C, and come back to us, and we'll see how you are,
Yeah.
and we'll give you a D through F at that point.
The smart ones will come to an interview and say, I read your book. Okay, cool. And now we're getting started somewhere.
Which page is the most? All right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's outstanding. Were you ever approached to do any of these TV shows for flipping?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's I don't want to, how do I say this without really throwing people under the bus? I think it's a pretty well-known fact now. HGTV changed the entire industry back in 2010, 2011, 2012, and made it like sexy to flip houses. And, next thing you know, like the teller at Walmart is flipping houses and, telling you about like, that was all well and good. The frustrating part about it, and for a lot of the reasons why I wrote a couple of my first books were on flipping, is because there were so many people not treating it like a business. And so what you didn't see was all the people getting hurt and getting burnt and losing their life savings and doing it the wrong way. And that HGTV, let's not just call that one network, right? Because there was multiple networks doing this, but half of that stuff was made up, man. Half of that stuff was, was scripted, was contracted, was, a lot of those folks, not saying all of them, absolutely, certainly there's some scrupulous flippers out there, but a lot of that stuff was made up and unfortunately hurt a lot of people, I think.
And you can tell that for most of them. Most of them shows on there are scripted. You can tell, and just the way that people look,
Yeah,
though they're not really in the business. They're in it
yeah.
for the Hollywood side of the business, not the actual people person business.
And anybody in business could pick it up immediately. They'd be like, well, we bought this house for 150 and we sold it for 200. We made 50 grand. Well, where's your holding costs? Where's your interest? Where's your insurance? Where's your broker's fees? Where's your transfer tax? Where's your title work? Like I'll take that 50 and I'll knock it down to -10 by the time we're done. And you're not even talking about that on the show.
Right.
But then people be like, oh, I could make 50 grand flipping a house. No, these people just lost $10,000 and they're claiming they made 50. And so a lot of that stuff is really, I think that's where fake news all originated from, is like we can put whatever we want in front of these people and they're gonna eat it up, and that's unfortunate.
And then, like you said, someone watching this says, "Oh, I can do that," and then they jump into it and they lose everything. They lose their bag.
Lose their shirt.
Yeah.
I always said to people, we all have that uncle or aunt or someone who flipped a house and they'll tell you about it and they made amazing money and they're like, this was the best investment of my life. But the people who lost their shirt, they don't talk about it. You don't go to a cocktail party and be like, I flipped a house once and I lost $50,000 and it took me years to replenish my retirement account. Like nobody brags or talks about that. That's like a secret.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. Is I think a lot of people got hurt in that movement, and you never hear about those people.
Right, they're left by the wayside as the other ones are gloating that they did well, even though they probably, like you said, they probably weren't doing well. Just but on TV they did well. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely,
part of
absolutely.
that life. With your
Yep.
storage stuff, do you franchise or do you just flat out own all of that?
No, we own it all outright. Of course, with investors, we do what are called syndicated deals. So we basically sell off parts of the equity for the monies to run the deal, and then we go get debt traditionally from banks, get construction loans, and then build the property. And then when we refinance, we give the goal is always to give everybody all their money back, and then we have a cash flowing asset. And our syndicated partners, even though they're silent partners, they're what we call limited partners or LPs. They run with equity in perpetuity. So even after we give all their cash back after a deal is done, the goal is that they stay in as equity partners as long as they want. They don't have any money on the table at that point, so we just call it like the cherry on top, right? They're playing with house money at that point. But they get checks in the mail every quarter, and they live on in perpetuity. And then one day, inevitably, we're going to sell that asset and they're going to get their piece of that equity in that asset, years later after they've already made their investment, got their money back.
And they'll be happy another day. That's good.
That's right.
So if you can give advice to someone that wants to get into the storage side of this business, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, go out there and take some action, right? Get surrounded with the right people. We offer a free group. It's called Our Road to 10 Million in Self-Storage. It's on Facebook. You can join it and get tons of assets in there and tons of, free trainings and so on and so forth. And then the step up from that is we created what's called the Storage Syndicate. And the syndicate is a real life traditional syndicate partnership, right? So people pay to be a member, but the people that are in that group are either newbies who don't understand real estate, and we teach them how to go find deals where they can earn equity and earn cash. We had 3 guys in the last 7 months add 250 grand to their net worth, cash and equity, just going out and finding deals, which is amazing. And that's in one deal, because these things are so scalable, right? That it's, there's availability of resources there to help people, go out and find deals and be able to make it worth their while. So if you have no experience at all, you can learn how to go find deals for experienced developers, work your way into the deal somehow long term. Some people start like that and they aspire to be developers themselves, or they aspire to help the deal along the way to earn more equity. The second level would be existing developers that are already building self-storage and they want to network with great lenders and great builders and architects and designers, and of course, these deal finders that we're talking about. The third level would be experienced real estate flippers like myself who want to scale, who want to find something different that's going to be more scalable and easier to manage and much more profitable. So we have a lot of folks that are in the wholesale and the fix and flip business that are really trying to transition into self-storage development. And then last but not least, we have accredited investors. So, people who have a lot of net worth, have a lot of wealth, they're looking for ways to invest and make great money. They tap into this network of developers and builders, and they can see the deals come to life behind the scenes. Gives you a much better comfort factor when you're going and investing, a couple $100,000 in a deal.
Definitely. And like you, when you transitioned, it was pretty much a pretty good deal for you since you already had a background in construction. You went to Seabees, got more construction, you had entrepreneur
Yep.
goals. A lot of veterans, when they're coming out, they don't have that kind of mindset, that goal to transition properly. So if they come to your
Yep.
Facebook group or your website, would they be able to just contact you and say, hey, brother, how can I do
Yep.
this? How can I get better?
100%. I'm always here to help. I want to see people transition and do really, really well. Actually, one of my best friends just retired as a Master Chief in the Navy, and he's already in this process. Not only did he just ramp up his own general contracting business, but he's looking at sites to kind of transition into self-storage as well. I think as long as you have that can-do mindset and that problem-solving ability, that spirit, which all of us are taught in the military, if you took advantage of what you had there, right, then you can make this happen one way, shape, or form.
Outstanding. And I'm sure some of our listeners will hit your Facebook group. I'll put in the show notes. And you have two websites, I believe, right? The Storage Syndicate and something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they can go to storagesyndicate.com if they were interested in the mastermind. They can go to the Facebook group as well, and then legacybuilder.coach is our main coaching platform.
Awesome. I'll put them both in the show notes, and that way they can find you easily. All your links will be in there as well. Any parting words you want to tell people before you come on? We get off here.
No, just go take action, right? My favorite thing is, just getting my one of my mentors used to say, the art is in the start. Right. I think there's so many people sit on the sidelines, unfortunately, and I see this with transitioning military folks as well. It's like you get out and you're not tied to a thing or a group or a battalion or what have you. So you kind of feel lost, right? Don't be afraid to go take some action in the right direction. Invest in yourself. Go to an event. Go to a mastermind meetup. Go to something that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but gets you closer to the end result that you're looking to seek. Action is going to carry you a lot further than analysis paralysis or thinking about it. You're never going to get anywhere thinking about it.
Like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
that's correct.
We got to. Joe, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for your service, and I appreciate everything you're doing in the world of real estate, self-storage, and your authoring. I'd love to have you on again in the future to see where you are.
Yeah, I'm sure we can make that happen. Thanks for having me, Rich.
Thanks, brother.